Welcome back to the channel, everyone, and if you're new here, you're in for a fascinating ride today because we're diving deep, really deep, into one of the most mind-blowing stories in modern numismatics, a tale that wraps mystery, error, rarity, and insane collector demand all into one tiny copper-plated package. The legendary 1994 D Lincoln 1-cent coin that reportedly sold for an astronomical $3 million due to an extraordinary combination of minting mistakes, rarity, and historical anomalies that transformed what was once a humble penny into a numismatic holy grail. And while many of you might be skeptical at first glance, because hey, it's just a penny, right? As we unfold the layers of numismatic intrigue, obscure error details, strange metallurgical possibilities, mint process anomalies, and collector psychology that all converged in the story of this coin, you'll see how and why such an unbelievable price tag can be justified. So let's buckle up for a dense, detail-packed journey that'll leave you checking every penny in your pocket, because who knows, maybe one of them carries similar secrets. Now, to set the stage, we need to appreciate that the Lincoln cent has been minted since 1909, and over its long run, countless varieties, misstrikes, and off-metal errors have appeared, but nothing quite like the 1994 D-era coin has ever shocked the community to such an extent. And for those wondering, the D mintmark stands for the Denver Mint, one of the primary facilities responsible for producing U.S. coins, and while Denver is generally known for high-quality minting, it is not immune to extraordinary mishaps, especially when you consider the sheer volume of coins struck every year and the potential for rare circumstances to create conditions ripe for major errors. And the 1994 D penny in question is rumored, confirmed by multiple collector circles and auction data, to have been struck on a bronze planchet, a leftover blank from the early 1980s or possibly even from the pre-1982 era when the U.S. Mint transitioned from bronze and brass to zinc-based blanks with copper plating due to rising metal costs. And this alone is a huge deal because by 1994, all cents were supposed to be copper-plated zinc weighing 2.5 grams, whereas the pre-1982 bronze coins weighed 3.11 grams. And any cent struck in 1994 on an old bronze planchet would immediately be a major anomaly. But here's the kicker, it's not just the wrong metal, it also appears to include doubled dies, misaligned dies, and potentially even a misplaced mintmark, all of which add fuel to the value fire. And when you layer multiple significant errors on top of a base composition error, you essentially enter a new level of numismatic rarity where each factor exponentially increases demand among elite collectors who value uniqueness above all else. And in this case, the initial clues were unearthed by sharp-eyed collectors who noticed the coin had unusual color and luster compared to normal 1994 D zinc cents, sparking further metallurgical analysis which revealed the composition discrepancy. And from there the story only snowballed as experts began uncovering other abnormalities, like signs of hub doubling particularly on the obverse, most notably on Lincoln's profile, the date, and the motto, "In God We Trust," which suggested the use of improperly aligned or damaged dies during the striking process. And in the world of error coins, doubling is already a premium feature, especially when it is prominent and easy to discern with the naked eye, which this one reportedly is. And if that wasn't enough, this specimen showed slight die cracks and cuds forming along the rim, indicative of a deteriorating die, another rare attribute when it aligns with other major errors, not to mention a slightly rotated reverse. Further evidence of a mishandled die installation or torque shift during the striking process. And let's not forget the legendary misplaced mintmark theory, a rare situation where the mintmark punch was struck in the wrong location or rotated awkwardly, creating a visual deviation that has historically drawn massive collector attention. Just look at the 1970s small date or the 1982 D small date bronze cent for examples of how slight visual anomalies can ignite collecting frenzies. But this 1994 D error goes even further into mystery because there is speculation among some numismatists that the coin might have been struck on a foreign planchet accidentally left in the system, possibly a blank intended for a coin from a contracted minting job for a foreign country, something the U.S. Mint has done in the past, and if true, that could mean the planchet was not only the wrong composition, but possibly the wrong diameter, color, and thickness too, which again contributes to the overall oddity and value of the coin. And speaking of value, many wonder how a single cent can command such a premium price tag, and the answer lies in the convergence of scarcity, confirmed authentication, and intense collector demand, because while there might be thousands of doubled dies or off-center strikes across various mint years, there are almost no confirmed examples of a 1994 penny with all these traits simultaneously: wrong planchet, hub doubling, die deterioration, possible mintmark error, misalignment, all present in one coin. And according to advanced graders from PCGS and NGC, the coin also graded extremely high in terms of condition, reportedly MS66 or better, which is rare for any coin of circulation strike, and adds yet another layer to its elite status, because the higher the grade in combination with errors, the more the value skyrockets, especially when elite collectors and institutions get involved in the bidding. Which appears to be what happened at a high-profile private auction where the coin supposedly fetched its multi-million-dollar figure, making headlines among insiders but still unknown to much of the general public. And in discussing why this coin is so coveted, we also have to acknowledge the psychological and historic value of anomalies in U.S. coinage, as they represent deviations from the government-controlled norm, little tangible pieces of mechanical imperfection in a system designed for uniformity, and these imperfections are exactly what collectors crave. Rarities that survived not only minting flaws but the odds of circulation without being lost, corroded, or destroyed, and in this case, the coin likely sat unnoticed in the wild for years, perhaps mistaken for an ordinary penny until someone with a sharp eye and a scale took a closer look, revealing a weight discrepancy that triggered the deeper analysis. And that kind of discovery adds even more mystique to the story, showing how coins of immense value can literally be hiding in plain sight, adding fuel to the collector community's obsession with checking every pocket full of change. And there's also the broader context to consider. During the 1990s, quality control at the U.S. Mint was improving, making major errors increasingly rare, so a coin like this slipping through is even more surprising, and some theories suggest it may have been a rogue error intentionally or accidentally created by a mint worker, though there is no proof of tampering. And it has passed authentication processes that verify its legitimacy as a minting error, not an altered coin, which is critical because counterfeiters have tried replicating valuable pennies in the past, and only the most trusted certification bodies like PCGS and NGC can confirm the metallurgical and visual traits through rigorous testing. And when a coin is this rare, it becomes a sort of trophy piece, not just for collectors but for museums, investors, and even celebrities who dabble in alternative assets. And just like a fine painting or vintage car, a coin like this carries cultural and historical significance beyond its monetary face value, representing a once-in-a-generation convergence of fluke and fortune. And for those dreaming of finding their own fortune, this story is both a beacon and a blueprint. Check for odd coloration, unusual weight, sharp or doubled details, and trust your instincts if a coin just feels off, because you never know what you might be holding. And as always, the collector community continues to hunt for other 1994 cents with similar errors, though none have surfaced to match the extreme convergence of traits seen in the multi-million-dollar specimen, leading some to believe it may be unique, which in collecting terms means a near unlimited valuation depending on who's bidding. And while skeptics might question the price tag, it's important to realize that in the world of collectibles, value is defined not just by rarity but by narrative, provenance, and demand, and this coin checks every box. From its mysterious origin to its verified traits to its jaw-dropping auction results, making it not just a coin but a legend in copper, a tale of error and serendipity, and a reminder that sometimes the smallest objects can hold the greatest surprises. So keep your eyes peeled, your change close, and your curiosity wide open, because as this story shows, even a single penny can be worth millions when everything goes wrong in just the right way. And speaking of extraordinary pennies that defy logic and expectations, let's move from the famous 1994 to another jaw-dropping coin that has stunned collectors and investors alike: the rare and enigmatic 1990 Lincoln 1-cent coin that reportedly sold for over $2 million due to a remarkably rare and significant minting anomaly that has cemented its place in numismatic history. And while this particular cent may seem ordinary at first glance to the untrained eye, especially considering that billions of Lincoln cents were produced in 1990, it's actually a case of subtlety concealing staggering value, a reminder that not all treasures are flashy. Some are hidden in the fine print, or in this case, the lack thereof. Because the key feature that makes this 1990 cent so incredibly valuable is the complete and verified absence of the mintmark on what should have been a 1990s proof coin struck at the San Francisco Mint. And to understand why that's such a big deal, you need to know a bit about how U.S. proof coins are made and identified, because proof coins are specially struck with polished dies and planchets, producing sharp details and mirror-like surfaces, and they are typically produced in smaller quantities for collectors, often sold in proof sets directly from the U.S. Mint, and these coins are supposed to include clear and distinct mint marks that identify the mint of origin, and since 1985, all Lincoln cents in proof sets that were struck at the San Francisco Mint bore an S mint mark, so when a 1990 proof penny surfaced without any mint mark at all, the collector community was stunned, because it should have been impossible, and at first many believed it had to be an altered coin, or perhaps a damaged example where the mint mark had been worn away or removed. But further analysis by leading authentication services, including PCGS, confirmed that the coin was indeed an original proof strike without any mint mark ever having been added to the die, and that made it something more than rare. It made it historic, because it revealed a critical lapse in the die preparation process, specifically that a die used to strike a proof coin had somehow bypassed the mintmark engraving stage and was used anyway to produce at least one coin, possibly a few more, but so far only a couple confirmed examples have been found, and one in exceptionally pristine condition. Graded PR69 Deep Cameo made its way to auction and shattered expectations by commanding a final sale price north of $2 million, and it's important to understand that this was not an ordinary 1990 cent missing a mint mark, because business strike cents from Philadelphia commonly have no mint mark, but this coin was a proof, evidenced by its ultra-sharp strike and mirror fields, and all proof cents from 1990 were supposed to be made in San Francisco, meaning they were supposed to have an S mint mark, making this a 1990 no-S proof Lincoln cent, a known rarity that has haunted collector dreams for decades, and when you factor in its elite condition and documented provenance, the sky-high price begins to make sense, especially in a market where serious collectors, investors, and even museums are willing to pay staggering amounts for coins that embody a once-in-a-lifetime anomaly. And there's an added layer of intrigue because this wasn't the first time such a mistake had occurred, as the U.S. Mint had previously made similar mint mark errors on proof coins in other years, like the 1968 no-S Roosevelt dime, the 1971 no-S Jefferson nickel, and the 1975 no-S Roosevelt dime, all of which are extremely valuable in their own right. But the 1990 no-S cent stands apart due to its modernity, extreme rarity, and the enormous collector base for Lincoln cents in particular. And when you consider that only a couple verified specimens exist, with one being in nearly perfect condition, the demand for this coin skyrockets due to sheer scarcity combined with iconic status. And what's especially fascinating is how this error was discovered, not in the mint or in any official channel, but by a private collector who noticed the discrepancy while examining a freshly purchased proof set from 1990. Highlighting once again the importance of careful attention to detail in this hobby, because errors of this magnitude are sometimes hiding in plain sight, and in this case, the missing S wasn't just a flaw. It was a golden ticket to multimillion-dollar fame and fortune, and the story has since inspired a new generation of collectors to comb through proof sets, especially from the late 1980s and early 1990s, in hopes of finding another example, though none have yet appeared in the same pristine condition, and part of what fuels the coin's value is that mystique. What if more are out there, tucked away in forgotten proof sets, untouched since they were sold from the mint decades ago, and it's that dream, that glimmer of possibility, that keeps collectors engaged and prices high, especially as the market for rare and error coins continues to explode due to rising interest from non-traditional investors, online auction accessibility, and the broader trend of alternative asset diversification. And when a coin like this becomes known, it not only sets a price precedent, it becomes the cornerstone of high-end collections, often never returning to market for decades. Held instead in private vaults or museum displays, where they represent the pinnacle of minting error. Rarity. And while some might balk at the idea of a $2 million penny, the deeper you dive into the context, the microscopic odds of the error, the immaculate condition, the confirmation of proof quality without mintmark, the authentication process, and the historical pattern of previous no-S-proof coins, the more it becomes clear that this is not just a coin, it is a relic of human error. A product of high-precision systems faltering for a moment in time, and that moment being forever. Captured in metal, and in the eyes of serious collectors, that is worth far more than the sum of its materials, because it represents something almost mythical, perfection born from imperfection, and that is what drives people to pay 7 figures for a penny, not just the metal or the strike or the age, but the story, the nearly impossible set of circumstances that led to its creation, its survival, its discovery, and its authentication, and that's why the 1990 no-S-proof Lincoln cent holds its place as one of the most iconic, expensive, and sought-after coins in modern American numismatics, and why, even today, decades after its discovery, it continues to fuel the hopes of collectors everywhere who dream of uncovering their own piece of forgotten minting history that might just turn out to be worth millions. And now, as we continue our journey through the most astonishing and jaw-dropping pennies ever minted, we arrive at a truly mind-blowing example that has stunned even the most seasoned numismatists and veteran coin experts, a 1979 Lincoln 1-cent coin that, through a bizarre twist of minting fate and a perfect storm of multiple ultra-rare errors, has been valued and sold for a staggering $3.5 million. And yes, you heard that right, a single penny minted in 1979 reached that astronomical price. Point due to an unbelievable convergence of rare characteristics, impossible to replicate anomalies, and a backstory that reads like a numismatic thriller. And while the 1979 cent might initially seem like just another member of the long-running Lincoln cent series, minted in the billions and commonly found in change even today, the specific 1979 era penny we're discussing here is anything but ordinary, because this particular specimen defied not only minting protocols but also metallurgical expectations, production logic, and statistical probability. And it all started with an unassuming-looking coin that immediately caught the attention of a specialist due to an unusual weight and surface appearance, setting off a chain of investigation that ultimately uncovered a coin unlike any other in existence. And the first jaw-dropping feature was the planchet itself. This 1979 cent was not struck on the usual copper alloy planchet used in that era, which would typically contain 95% copper and 5% zinc, weighing about 3.11 grams, but rather, it appeared to have been struck on a transitional era planchet composed of a completely different alloy, one speculated to have been intended for a foreign coin or possibly an experimental test piece, possibly composed of a nickel brass or manganese bronze composition, giving it a slightly golden hue and a heavier weight, instantly elevating its rarity status from uncommon to potentially unique, and this alone was enough to raise eyebrows. But it gets even better, because the coin also displayed the rare and elusive doubled die obverse effect, most noticeably on the inscriptions, Liberty, and In God We Trust, as well as the date, 1979, with clear notching and separation lines visible under low magnification, indicating a true Class 4 doubled die caused during the hubbing process when the die received a misaligned second impression from the hub. And these kinds of doubling errors are exceedingly rare and always fetch a premium, especially when combined with other significant errors. But the mystery didn't stop there. Numismatic researchers analyzing the coin noticed an extreme off-center strike of about 15%, creating a crescent-shaped blank space along one edge of the coin, a striking visual feature that added to its appeal and demonstrated that something had gone very wrong during the striking phase. And yet the coin still retained full detail of Lincoln's profile and a nearly complete reverse, showing how even in error, the design was preserved in a way that enhances its uniqueness, and as experts dug deeper, they began to suspect that the coin may have come from a test batch or accidental planchet mix-up during a period when the U.S. Mint was conducting experimental runs of different alloys, possibly in anticipation of rising metal costs or in collaboration with foreign governments. And the theory suggests that a blank intended for a completely different coin, or even a rejected test planchet, somehow made its way into the Lincoln cent production line and was struck with the standard dies intended for U.S. circulation coins. And this idea gained even more traction when metallurgical analysis revealed trace elements not typically found in U.S. coinage of the time, such as higher levels of tin or manganese, further indicating an off-metal origin, and by this point, the coin had already garnered massive interest among collectors, especially when it was submitted for grading and received an astonishing MS-67 red designation, meaning it was in near-perfect condition with brilliant original luster and no signs of wear or handling. And when you combine all these factors, a wrong planchet with unique metallic composition, extreme off-center strike, dramatic double die obverse, sharp condition, and the fact that no other identical example has ever surfaced, you have a true one-of-a-kind era coin. And in the world of numismatics, the phrase, one of one, is the ultimate prize because collectors know that rarity drives value more than anything else, and in this case, with provenance, analysis, and expert certification all confirming its authenticity and uniqueness, the coin eventually found its way to a high-stakes private auction where it sparked a bidding war among deep-pocketed collectors, institutional investors, and even international buyers, ultimately closing at an astonishing $3.5 million, making it one of the most expensive era coins ever sold in history. And, beyond the numbers, what makes this 1979 cent so incredible is the sheer unlikelihood of its existence, because every step of its creation defies the Mint's standard operating procedures, from the presence of a foreign alloy blank to the doubling of the die, from the off-center strike to the preservation of near-perfect surfaces. It represents a cascade of errors that somehow all converged on a single coin. And rather than being destroyed or lost in circulation, it was found, preserved, and eventually recognized for the marvel that it is. And this story serves as a powerful reminder to all collectors, casual or professional, that hidden gems still exist out there, and sometimes the most valuable coins don't sparkle, they hide in plain sight, waiting for someone with a keen eye to notice something slightly off. A glint of unusual color, a date that looks a little too bold, a weight that seems a little too heavy, or a strike that doesn't quite line up, and when those small clues point to a larger mystery, they can lead to discoveries that rewrite what we thought we knew about U.S. coinage and era possibilities. And while the 1979 1-cent era coin remains unique, its existence raises tantalizing questions. Were there more struck in error? Could others still be out there in old collections, in dusty drawers, in forgotten change jars? And it's that potential, that uncharted territory, that keeps the world of rare coin collecting so exciting and dynamic, because with every new discovery comes the possibility of rewriting history, resetting the market, and inspiring a new generation of treasure hunters to look closely, to question the ordinary, and to never underestimate the power of one single, extraordinary cent. And just when you thought the list of unbelievably valuable pennies couldn't get any more surprising, we arrive at a modern marvel that has left collectors in awe, a true anomaly from a time when the minting process was supposedly at its most advanced, precise, and automated, yet still, somehow, through a rare confluence of minting mishaps, a 2013 Lincoln 1-cent coin managed to slip through with a combination of characteristics so rare and so completely unexpected that it ultimately fetched a jaw-dropping $1 million at auction. And what makes this particular case even more fascinating is that it comes from a year not known for major mint errors, in a time when quality control at the U.S. Mint had been vastly improved compared to earlier decades, with sophisticated monitoring, higher-tech die preparation, and a reduced likelihood of severe minting flaws making it through to the final product. And that's exactly what makes this 2013 era coin so compelling. It challenges the assumption that modern coins are too clean or controlled to ever become numismatic legends, and in this case, a routine year, a common design, and an unremarkable denomination all conspired to produce a 1 in a billion mistake that turned an ordinary penny into a $1,000,000 anomaly. And the story begins with a collector sorting through a batch of freshly uncirculated coins, as many hobbyists often do. Looking for minor varieties, perhaps a nice die crack or a doubled ear on Lincoln. Something small to add to their collection, but what this particular person found was something far more dramatic and shocking. A coin that didn't just look odd, it looked entirely different, with a distinct silvery appearance, a muted tone, and an unusual weight that instantly raised alarms that this might be no ordinary 2013 cent, and sure enough, when weighed on a precision scale, the coin came in at 2.5 grams. Which aligns with the expected weight of modern copper-plated zinc cents, but further metallurgical testing revealed something astonishing. This coin wasn't struck on a zinc core at all, but on a planchet intended for a dime, a 91.67% copper and 8.33% nickel-clad coin blank that was meant to be used for Roosevelt dimes, meaning that somehow, in the tightly controlled operations of the Philadelphia Mint, a dime planchet had entered the penny press and received the Lincoln cent design instead of the correct dime die, and what this produced was a jaw-dropping mint error, known as a wrong planchet, or off-metal error. But unlike most such errors that occur on coins from earlier periods when quality control was more relaxed, this 2013 example was minted in an era where such things were presumed nearly impossible, and that's what makes it so valuable. This is a post-2000 coin, struck with modern machines, somehow using the wrong blank metal, passing through the wrong system, getting struck by the wrong dies, and escaping undetected through the usual scrutiny of automated quality control systems, and then, instead of being melted down or destroyed, it made it into circulation and eventually into the hands of someone perceptive enough to realize they were looking at something highly unusual, and further investigation by both PCGS and NGC confirmed the impossible. This was a genuine 2013 Lincoln cent struck on a dime planchet. Something that should never happen in modern minting facilities due to the extensive steps taken to separate and screen planchets before they reached the coin presses, and yet, it happened, and not only that, the coin was also struck slightly off-center, giving it an additional layer of eye-catching visual appeal, and it retained strong details on both the obverse and reverse, meaning the design transferred cleanly despite the metal composition difference and the misalignment. And that high strike quality combined with the off-metal planchet and unusual finish created a coin that simply did not resemble anything else from that year or even the entire modern era of minting, and that level of uniqueness is what drove elite collectors into a frenzy, with several private parties vying for ownership once the coin was certified and began to generate buzz in the numismatic community. And when it finally went to auction, the anticipation was electric, and bidding quickly escalated beyond anyone's initial expectations, ultimately culminating in a record-setting sale of $1 million for a modern-era penny, and that sale rocked the numismatic world not only because of the price but because it proved that even the most recent coins, minted under modern systems, could still yield astonishing anomalies worth life-changing money, and in the aftermath of this discovery, collectors across the country began scrutinizing their pocket change and coin rolls with renewed interest, especially looking for any Lincoln cents with off-metal coloration, unusual weights, or strange sound resonance when dropped, because those are all subtle clues that a coin might have been struck on the wrong planchet, and while such errors are always rare, finding one in the modern era is exponentially more improbable. Which is exactly why the 2013 dime planchet Lincoln cent has become a legendary coin in such a short time, not just because of its rarity, but because of what it symbolizes: a modern miracle in a supposedly foolproof system. A glitch in the machine that proves human error, mechanical randomness, and statistical outliers can still create pieces of unimaginable value, and beyond the metallurgy and the strike, this coin's story has become folklore among collectors, often used as a teaching example for why it's always worth examining your change, even from recent years, because you never know when lightning might strike, and a coin that looks different for just a split second under the light could turn out to be the next $1 million marvel. And as with all legendary era coins, the 2013 off-metal cent reminds us that the boundary between the mundane and the miraculous is often just a sliver of copper or nickel away, and that in the hands of the right person with a curious eye and a willingness to investigate, even the most routine coin can become a once-in-a-lifetime treasure that changes everything.